My name is David, and I've lived in this neighborhood for as long as I can remember. It's a small, quiet town where everyone knows each other. My parents always told me that it was the perfect place to raise a family, and for many years, I believed them. But that all changed when the new neighbors moved in. At first, I was excited to see new faces in the neighborhood, but that excitement soon turned into fear. I first met the Smiths when they knocked on our door on a hot summer day. Mr. and Mrs. Smith were in their 50s, and their daughter, Emily, was just a few years older than me. They seemed like a lovely family, and I was happy to have new friends in the neighborhood. However, as days went by, I started to notice strange things happening in their house. Lights flickering at odd hours, loud noises coming from their basement, and sometimes I would catch glimpses of Mrs. Smith standing by the window, staring at nothing. I tried to ignore it all, thinking that maybe I was just overreacting. That was until one night, I woke up to the sound of glass shattering. I quickly got out of bed and looked out the window, only to see Mr. Smith dragging a large trash bag out of their house. He tossed it in the garbage bin as if it were nothing. The next day, I went over to their house to see if everything was okay. Before I could even ring the doorbell, Mrs. Smith opened the door, her face pale and her eyes filled with fear. She quickly shooed me away, saying everything was fine and that I should mind my own business. But I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong, and that was when I started to do some detective work of my own. I would casually walk past their house, pretending to take my dog for a walk, and I would see strange markings on their windows and doors. It almost looked like some kind of ritualistic symbols. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know what was going on in that house. So, I sneakily made my way to their basement window and peeked inside. What I saw made my blood run cold. There was a group of people sitting in a circle on the floor, candles lit all around them. In the center of the circle was a young girl, bound and gagged. And standing over her was Emily, holding a knife in her hand. Couldn't believe my eyes. I wanted to scream, to run for help, but I was frozen in fear. Suddenly, Emily looked straight at me and smiled, as if she knew I was there the whole time. And that's when I heard a voice behind me. "Hello, Sarah." I turned around to see Mrs. Smith standing right behind me, her eyes completely black, and her voice sounded like it was coming from everywhere. "Welcome to the family," she said, as her body contorted in an unnatural way. I could hear the bones cracking and her skin stretching. I screamed and ran back to my house, not stopping until I reached the safety of my room. I was too scared to even look out the window, thinking that any moment now, Mrs. Smith would appear in front of me. I didn't sleep that night, and the next morning, I told my parents everything. They didn't believe me and said I must have been having a bad dream. But I knew what I saw was real. From that day on, I avoided the Smiths at all costs. But that didn't mean they stopped tormenting me. I would hear them whispering my name at night, and sometimes I would see them standing outside my window, watching me with their black eyes. I was terrified they would come for me, like they did to their daughter. And that's when I made a plan to put an end to this nightmare. I waited until my parents were asleep, and then I snuck into the Smith's house. I found Emily tied up in the basement, just like I saw that night. I quickly untied her and helped her escape from the house. We ran to my house and called the police. The next morning, the Smiths were arrested, and it was revealed that they were a part of a cult that performed human sacrifices. Emily and I were lucky to escape with our lives. It's been years since that incident, but I still have nightmares about it. I couldn't believe my friendly neighbors were capable of such evil. And ever since then, I have never trusted anyone easily. So my dear readers, beware of your neighbors. You never know what dark secrets they might be hiding.